This video goes over the assembly instructions for the Coleman 50cc scooter. No one under the age of 16 should operate this scooter. Read and understand the owner's manual and all labels before starting the scooter for the first time. Always wear a helmet and protective gear. Before starting the scooter, it is always important to follow the pre-ride inspection process located in the owner's manual. Following the pre-ride inspection process will help to make sure the scooter is ready for safe and enjoyable operation. Assembly instructions. Locate and cut the wires holding the back of the scooter to the bottom of the crate. Remove the front axle bolt holding the front of the scooter to the bottom of the crate. Do not discard the axle bolt, bushing, or lock nut. These will be used when installing the front wheel. With two workers, remove the scooter from the bottom of the crate. Center kickstand assembly. Locate the center kickstand. Hardware needed for this assembly is the spring, the 8mm by 177mm pin, the cotter pin, and the 8mm washer. Tools needed: needle nose pliers and a flathead screwdriver. Locate the kickstand mounting brackets on the bottom of the scooter. Install the kickstand with the bottom of the stand facing the rear of the scooter. Attach the stand with the kickstand pin. Lock the pin in place by installing the 8mm washer and then the cotter pin. Make sure the cotter pin cannot be removed by bending over the ends. Install the spring using a large screwdriver for leverage. Once the stand is installed, lift up the scooter and place on the center stand. Handlebar assembly. Items needed for the handlebar assembly are 10mm by 45mm bolt, the 10mm concave washer, and the 10mm lock nut. Tools needed for the assembly are the 14mm wrench and a 14mm socket head wrench. Lift the handlebar assembly and place over the steering shaft. Line up the holes in the handlebar assembly and the steering shaft. Place the 10mm bolt through the large concave spacer washer and insert in steering assembly. To gain better access to the back of the bolt, turn the handlebars to one side. Secure the bolt with the 10mm lock nut. Front cowling and headlight plug. Parts needed for this assembly is the headlight cowling assembly, the top cowling cover plate. Hardware is the 5mm by 12mm screws. Tools needed: a Phillips screwdriver. Install the top cowling cover plate. The cover plate will fit in the tabs located on the cowling assembly. Locate the headlight plug on the headlight cowling assembly and plug into the wire harness. Once the plug is in the wire harness, install the assembly by lining up the screw holes on the back side of the assembly with the screw hole mounting points on the scooter. Using the screws, attach the headlight cowling assembly to the front of the scooter. Turn the handlebars left and right to make sure nothing hinders the steering. Front wheel installation. Parts needed for the assembly is the front wheel. Hardware is a 12mm by 210mm axle bolt, the 12mm wheel bushing, and a 12mm lock nut. Tools needed: a 14mm wrench, a 17mm and 12mm socket wrench, and wire cutters. Locate and cut off the zip tie holding the speedometer sending unit to the fork. Remove the front brake caliper assembly by removing the two 10mm bolts holding the caliper assembly in place. Install the 12mm bushing into the wheel on the brake side of the wheel assembly. Install the wheel by placing the axle bolt through the fork and brake side of the wheel. The speedometer sending unit tabs need to align with the slots in the wheel hub. The wheel hub slots need to align with the speedometer sending unit tabs. Turning the fork to the side will help make installing the speedometer assembly easier. Line up the speedometer assembly tabs with the wheel assembly slots and install. Make sure the tab on the speedometer sending unit is in the slot on the fork. Tighten the axle bolt. Check the disc brake before installing to make sure there's enough room for the brake disc to fit between the pads. If not, use a screwdriver to gently open up the pads. Install the caliper by inserting the brake disc between the pads. Install the brake caliper with the two 10mm bolts that were previously removed. With a torque wrench, torque the bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Mirror installation. Left and right mirrors. Tools needed is a 14mm wrench. Turn the nut on the end of the mirror bracket counterclockwise to expose the threads. Install both mirrors on the scooter by locating and screwing the mirror into the threaded holes on the handlebar assembly. Adjust the mirror so the operator can see behind the scooter, then tighten the cinch nut. Battery installation. The battery with this scooter is a gel cell battery. It is ready to install right out of the box. However, it is recommended to charge the battery before use. Please read the battery manufacturer's charging instructions before attempting to charge. Locate the square nuts that come with the battery and place on the positive and negative terminals. Install the battery in the battery slot on the scooter floor. Attach the positive red wire to the positive battery terminal. Attach the negative green wire to the negative battery terminal. Use the two 5mm screws to secure the battery cover. Install the floor mat by locating and pushing the floor mat into the holes provided on the scooter floor. This completes the assembly process of the Coleman 50cc scooter. For questions regarding these instructions, please call Coleman Power Sports at 888-405-8725 or go to colemanpowered.com.